Hi, I'm Kelly Vaughn, and we're doing Inside Indy a little differently. We are on Zoom, and we're zooming into your living rooms across Indianapolis today with a show talking about returning to the workforce, returning to church, and beyond. And joining us this evening is Pastor Shaune Shelby of Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Indianapolis, and Pastor Dr. Christopher Armstrong with Mount Vernon Community Missionary Baptist Church. Welcome to you both to Inside Indy.
Thank you for having us.
Man, the governor has pretty much said the state, and I guess it's coming in waves, so to speak, that we're returning back to work, back to church even. But you, as a part of the faith-based leadership COVID-19 task force, you say not so fast?
That is correct. We've decided as a coalition of pastors and faith leaders that we would seek the counsel of not only our faith story, but also of doctors and scientists. And right now, our community is vastly been affected by this virus, and with it not being any safe controls out there, we're thinking it's to our benefit to us not to rush back into our worship experiences, to maintain our safe distancing, to continue operating as we are with the hopes of returning to our traditional methods of worship.
Okay. Dr. Armstrong, you want to add to that how you feel about the governor and his declaration to open things up, but the churches are saying we're going to hold back a little bit?
Yes, ma'am. I do respect the governor, what he's saying. However, I do concur with Pastor Shelby that at this time, we do not believe that the church should be a test group, if you will. We care about our parishioners. We care about the safety thereof. And at this point, Ms. Vaughn, we believe that our members are safe, and we don't believe that they're stuck at home. We just believe that we're safe at home. And we have been providing the word. Members have been faithful with their commitments, their stewardship, their prayers, and their spiritual walk with God. And so at this time, we do respect the governor. This is not a sign of protest or anything. We just believe that at this point, the numbers and the data that we've been given do not support us gathering as a body of believers right now at the church.
Okay, so I'm gonna get into more specifically. You mentioned the numbers and why, but you also said test group. And I did read about that. And in one sense, it's like, this is the perfect group to test it. And then in another sense, you feel like a guinea pig, no?
Well, that's in a nutshell. Yes, ma'am. That's basically what we're saying, that while he may have had a wrong choice of words, or maybe not, that just may be what he wanted to say. But since it is our choice and our prerogative, we just feel like right now they can test someone else. We do not have the data. We do not have masks. We do not have gloves. We don't have sanitizing equipment right now for the safety and security of our parishioners. And again, Mrs. Vaughn, this is our first time pastoring in a pandemic. And so ultimately, we do not know what to do. So right now, that's what we're going to do, nothing, and just stay where we are.
Right. Okay. Pastor Shelby, I want to get to that question of why, and why churches, especially the ones that are coming together with the task force, why they're not ready. And he mentioned some of those things. So not enough hand sanitizer, masks, anything else that is keeping you from moving forward?
Sure. There's almost 20 steps, that we've kind of even looked at before we even enter into our churches. I think the medical science is not there, right? In our community, there's a big mistrust of medicine anyway, given our history. So for us, there's a lot of ills we don't even know we have in our community. People don't know their total history or to what illnesses they may have that may predispose them to COVID drastically affecting them. And so you couple that mistrust, you couple fragmented information coming out from the national level, you come out with the disparities in who can go back to work, you come out with things of our community being disproportionately affected, even with job loss. There's so many other variables, and our young people are susceptible now. So there's so many things that would go into a traditional worship experience for us that's unique to us. I mean, there's how do we handle the inflow and outflow of the public? How do we handle our evangelical thrust? We're churches that are open for people to come in. Now we're going to be inviting people who we don't know into that environment. And then so in our churches, adding all of those exterior things that could happen. I mean, really could go wrong. My biggest fear has been that one church decides to open and we cause an outbreak in our city. And so that's where the fear lies. Most of our churches that are traditionally African-American churches, at least, we have a large majority of our parishioners who are older. So you couple the older groups who are susceptible to having illnesses already who have to stay home. You marry that up with young people who are at home who don't really know their health conditions. And then you have that middle group, right? That group that say this shouldn't be affected by this, who are now in our community, we're learning they are being impacted by this. So where is the proof to say we're ready to go back? Where are all the mechanisms in place for us to go back? And then, like you said, we cannot be the testing ground for COVID and its survivability in our environment. It's not the prudent thing to do. And as faith leaders, part of our calling is to be shepherds. We are shepherding God's people. And right now we're trying to keep them in green pastures, if you would say, if I could use that, to make them safe, where they can eat, where they can drink. And then we have that resolve. So we've adjusted the way we worship. Again, I told my parishioners, this is a temporary process that we have to go through this, but it will never replace the traditional worship experience. And I don't want people getting used to Zoom or watching me online. We are a group of people who like to come together. So in the end, that's the ultimate goal, but we must be safe. And part of our decision with coming together, we realized that we can gather differently and still be together. And so we're together in this effort to keep our community safe, not just one church, but as many churches that would join us. We're linking ourselves with other faith communities who have done the same thing. But when you look down the list of what must be in place, I mean, how do you go to the bathroom in a traditional African-American church? How do you handle that flow and keep the bathroom safe? How do you handle children church and keep them safe from not touching surfaces and communicating the way they do? I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, even our entrances and exits to the church. So yeah, we can come in one way and leave out one door, but then how do you monitor that on an ongoing basis? And we don't have a corporate staff to man every door and to stand outside the restroom and to be out on the parking lot and guarding people. It's just not feasible for us right now.
Okay. Dr. Armstrong, what are your fears in going too soon back to church?
One of my biggest fears, and one thing I've shared with Pastor Shelby and other pastors who are partnering with us at this time, is grandma now, as they call it. They love God. They love church. They do respect their pastors. They respect leadership. And my greatest fear is for a grandma, who's been inside since January, if you will, because of the cold and the ice, and then get back to church only to get sick and pass away by September. Yeah. I believe as a pastor, we must be cognizant of the idea that they love us, they're leaning on us, and we are in a precarious predicament right now. They're really not listening to the president. They're not listening to the governor nor the mayor. They want to hear from their pastor. Right. And grandmother, they don't have Zoom, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. All they have is regular flip phone. And what we're doing, we just want to make sure that they're safe, they're sound, they're secure, and they are spiritual in this season. So my greatest fear is grandma right now. That's my greatest fear.
I love that. I love that. So what about those churches? I'm trying to understand the psychology behind some of their reasoning, saying that we're going to come together and God's going to protect us. Right. And so we shouldn't be afraid to go to church. What are your thoughts, each one of you? Dr. Armstrong, for you first.
Amen. My thing is, God will protect us if it's his will. However, we would rather be on the side of caution than on the side of regret. In my personal opinion, and I'm not putting any pastor under the bus or anything like that, but for us not to be concerned about the welfare and the well-being of the people that God himself has placed us over, he will protect us. However, we should not tempt God. It's just like jumping off of a bridge without a bungee cord. Okay, God save me. There are some dangers we automatically know that they exist. There's a potential, but we should not tempt God into such light just to go back, just to say God will protect us. He has already protected us with the safety and security of our surroundings, of our home, and with the knowledge that we have right now. I'm praying for every pastor during this problematic pandemic, but at the end of the day, I know that God is holding me accountable for the decisions that I make at Mount Vernon. And so I pray that I'm praying that all pastors would wait. That's just my prayer. Kelly, I don't know that if you know this or not, but there was an outbreak of a religious organization where many leaders passed away because they did not heed to the warnings of the CDC. There were many, and I don't know if you're referring to that or anything, but let me say this. There are a lot of people that are in the grave because we didn't follow the statistics that I believe God wanted us to know. And so even down through the word, we must rest assured that God is holding us accountable, and the members' blood is going to be on our hands. Pastor Shelby.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break because we're coming up on our break. But I did want to add to that about respecting the science that God created, which is called gravity. And so I think all of a sudden he's just going to nullify that because like he has that, and that's for us to. Right. Yeah, you don't want to jump off the bridge without the bungee cord. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll finish our discussion with members of the faith-based leadership COVID-19 task force on whether to return to church or not after this.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
And we're back here on Inside Indy, and we're talking with members of the faith-based leadership COVID-19 task force. And I want to ask Pastor Shaune Shelby of Ebenezer Baptist Church. Mayor Hogsett has set the date to return to work and to church as May 15th. So if not the 15th for churches here in Central Indiana, any idea when you might be able to open your doors?
Sure. I think you raised the point earlier, and I think Pastor Armstrong addressed it as well, right? God has not given us a spirit of fear, but he has given us a sound mind. And with that sound mind, it's helping us to have a resolve to reason. We are reasoning together as faith leaders to indicate when we can go. What I've noticed is that the political culture is waiting on a response. And I'm glad the faith community has a response at a time like this. They're willing to wait on the Lord. We're willing to trust science. We're willing to let our faith guide us and direct us. And so even though while the pace of the economy is the concern of a politician, our faith story tells us we should be concerned about the sheep. Our priority are the sheep of God's pasture. And he has called us at a time like this to be resolute and have a resolve not to put them in harm's way. And so while some people have to go to work, it becomes our job to pray. It becomes our job to care for them, even though they have to go to work. But we have to make a choice and choose what they should do. Right now, we're choosing life. And it's that simple for us. It's not about having strong enough faith. It's not about us doubting that God can do anything. What we're trusting is that at some point, if we listen to the doctors, if we adhere to what the scientists say, allow this COVID-19 to either one, develop a treatment for it, or two, until we're able to flatten it. And flatten it to us means on a downward turn. We're still behind the national averages on this trend line that they're talking about. We're not in New York. I always get tickled when I look at the people watching New York with great anticipation, and then we look into DC and kind of the politics of what they're saying. It's neither here nor there for us. The church has always been here to take care of people. So the economy can do what it wants to do. We still have our communities that are underserved by that. They're underemployed. There's still food issues in our community. There's still psychological damage that's happening as a result of this. There's still family strife. The church is there counseling through this. And if we just throw them out there and we're being inundated with homegoing celebrations and we're inundated with those things that we have no control over, it would become disheartening, and you're going to find pastors in distress if we don't have a resolve. And so we're just trying to encourage each other by having been a voice and being out in the community saying we're staying united. We don't have to be together to be together. We're together and wanting people to live. And that's what God wants us. And that's what we preach every Sunday, that people might have life and have life more abundantly. And you can't have life with your lungs in trouble. You can't have life abundantly when you can't even breathe, or you can't even go out of your home, or your taste buds are gone. I mean, think of that. That's such a daunting thing for us. So we're resolved to stay the course.
Okay, Dr. Armstrong, so why do you and perhaps the other ministers think that the Black community is being affected more greatly than other communities?
Wow. In my personal opinion, I believe that we're impacted for several reasons. Number one, there are some that don't watch the news. Two, some don't believe it, don't trust it. Three, we already have underlying health issues. And lastly, we have, in my personal opinion, some issues with trust. I see a lot of Black people out without masks. I see them, just going everywhere. But in reality, if we would learn to trust some information, we don't have to trust it all, but at least give it a chance. Stay in, give it a chance. We don't have to go to the park. We don't have to go to the mall. We don't have to go to the grocery store, the fast food restaurants. God has really gifted us with resources. And let me share this with you very quickly, Ms. Vaughn, that this isn't the first time, and I want to just be definite when I say this, that Black people has experienced some major issues. We've had to go through a whole lot, and we made it through it, but we only made it through it together. That's how we did it. We did it together. That's why I can applaud Pastor Shelby and the rest of the leadership that we have of pastors, that we are together. Church has never, ever been about a building. It's always about believers. And we are resolute when we stand and when we are fixed and firm. And I'm thankful that our parishioners, per se, are not forcing us to go back to work. I'm blessed, and we're thankful that we have parishioners that love and trust us enough to know that it's not about a worship service. It is about how we work. The only thing I believe that the church is missing right now is just the koinonia, the fellowship. We have never stopped being the ecclesia, the called out assembly. And so we appreciate God for that.
Okay. The incident out on, I think it was East 38th Street, where all the young people were congregating, any quick reaction to that? It was very frustrating to watch it on Facebook, and maybe because I'm a part of the older generation, they were very disappointed. They were complaining about it. It almost seems like there's two different, even within the African-American community, there's two different cities or and I don't know if it's about, is it a class struggle or is it, but you could see not everybody was happy about that, and were very unhappy about it. Or maybe it's a generational thing, like the young people versus the older people. But you look at that and you go, oh my gosh, like, are they not afraid of this thing? Why are they out there congregating? What was your take on that?
Well, that's why we're here. I think the sense of urgency for me is that they need to hear from the Black church and the faith leaders. We represent the diaspora of every culture, every demographic is represented in the Black church. So don't miss that point. We have young, we have older, we have affluent, we have those who are just making it in our churches. And that goes from a Jeffrey Johnson to a Pastor Sullivan. It goes to Pastor Jackson. It goes to Pastor Ramsey, to a Pastor Wallington, to a Pastor. We have these demographics, right, within our churches. And they haven't been able to hear us yet. I've been on many phone calls, or even with COVID, even with this issue, saying you need to have us at the table to speak truth to power. And if we're absent from the discussion, our parishioners are left to believe the politician or the political sway of the moment. Black lives are Black lives. It is COVID or it's being shot. And we're the only group of people that have to justify our stance. I wish people ask those folks rallying at the state capitol with guns, why are you out there assembling yourselves, storming the building with guns and unprotection gear on in the midst of this COVID-19? But they did it. And so when we had that thing on 38th Street, we were discussing it, believe it or not. There was actual pastors who were saying, hey, Shelby, what are we going to do about this now? This is happening. And these are our young people. I'm like, one, we should get the word out through our coalition that we are united together. They should be not banding together. And if they are, practice social distancing. Now, what I wish would have occurred is there was been some logic. Had a police officer said, hey, guys, this is not safe. The governor has a mandate out. Please disperse and go home. But it was not. It's almost as if there's a push against what is common sense. And so that incident that happened out there with these young people who are gathered, it's no different. There's people gathering in Carmel. There are people who are gathering in parks. There are people who are flooding the beaches in Florida right now. There are people who are assembling in parks in New York. There are people who are assembling even in Georgia, where there's an outbreak that happens. But if they hear the logic of their peer group, I know there's a young person whose father passed away in their 20s who have COVID. They need to hear that your demographic is affected by this. And then you're on quarantine and not knowing you could be, as Pastor Armstrong said, you could be almost taken home to kill your grandmother.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I just wonder if they realize that. We've got just about 3 minutes left. So I'm going to hit couple of questions really fast and quick here. And I wanted to mention that it was a gentleman on Facebook who thought you could get the virus through your skin. He was like, why should I wear a mask? Because it gets on your face. He didn't understand it went through your mucous membranes.
Yes.
So and this gentleman was probably older than us. And I thought, wow, that people don't always understand the information even that the scientists or the people are putting out there. So that's, I guess, in my own mind, why, whether it's our community or any community, we're not quite ready because we just assume that everybody's got it. Like they understand that.
And I think that's another thing in our community. I think you're right. In our community, most people think that we probably already had it or we already have it in our community. So why do I need to do any extra protection? Because evidently I've lived through it. What becomes disheartening, though, is we have these national people, the CDC, and these national organizations that are supposed to be speaking to the United States. But when you go through a press conference and the first 3 hours of it is bloviating and giving myself a cloud of black and saying I'm doing these great things, when we still have people who don't have PPE material PPE material to protect themselves as doctors. I got a cousin who's a doctor in an emergency room, and he's telling us, stay home, stay separate because I see the cases coming in. And then you have these misnomers of using bleach. We always have these in our community, these home remedies. And that's the biggest fear. Don't use that home remedy. Just trust the science, stay separate, stay apart, protect yourself, protect your grandmother, protect your children. Wear a mask when you go out. I don't care if nobody else has it on, but because it doesn't help me. If I wear my mask and you don't, then my protection is even lowered. So I'm fearful.
That's a whole nother show of itself. Why some people don't wear masks and why some people do. And that's just a whole.
Oh, they see the president not wearing it.
Right.
What did you think, Dr. Armstrong?
I said because they see the president and the governor not wearing him.
Okay, so they're imitating leadership. So, well, we're just about out of time. Your advice to people, and I mean, I've got just 1 minute left. Dr. Armstrong, your word to people.
My advice, stay in, stay safe, stay prayed up, read the word, make sure that you're spiritually healthy as well as mentally healthy and socially healthy and in your body.
Okay, Pastor Shelby, last word.
We are together on this. I want to realize that the church is together. Your pastor, encourage him to join this COVID coalition of faith leaders who are on the battlefield, even now, telling everyone, be safe, stay home, but do not do it with the spirit of fear. God has not forgotten us. He is no shorter than his promise. And we would just humble ourselves and pray, he will be in the midst of us. And God will bring us through this, but we are together in this. We don't have to gather to be together.
All right, I love it. And my last word is going to be take your vitamin C, your vitamin D, your probiotics and zinc, because if your immune system is ready, you'll be ready for the battle when you do go to church. Thank you so much for joining us, Pastor Shaune Shelby of Ebenezer Baptist Church and Dr. Armstrong, Christopher Armstrong of Mount Vernon Missionary Baptist Church. Thanks for joining us on Inside Indy.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You a good girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch. But the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week. Help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork about paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
take care.
We will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.